What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and today we're going to delve deep into the human psyche. We're going to examine some behavioral traits, some behavioral quirks, and whatever it is. Now, don't worry at all. As grandiose and intellectual as that sounds, we're really just talking about collector's editions. So, collector's editions of video games. What are they? Well, we all pretty much know, but let's go through them real quick anyway. You might have your standard basic ones: limited edition, collector's edition, special edition, whatever it is. And they may come with something small, it may come with a steelbook, it may come with a music CD, it may come with some DLC or a physical map. It might even come with a small little art book. And then as you go up, they come in many different ways, shapes, forms, names, everything. Typically, as you go up, you find ones that are more tied specifically in both name and contents to whatever game or whatever universe or series that they're looking at. You might have something like a Stray Sheep edition, a Take Your Heart edition, a Legendary edition, an Epic edition. There's so many different ones in there. They all come with different stuff. They might come with clothing, apparel. They might come with something from the game that you have a physical representation of in real life. They might come with a statue, an action figure, something merch related that's still wearable. Whatever it is, there's so many different versions out there. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm really only going to be using normie collector's editions for examples. No, I know, as much as everyone wants, I'm not going to use the examples of Resident Evil 6, €1,200 collector's edition that comes with a leather replica of Leon's jacket, or the $15,000 Devil May Cry 5 collector's edition that comes with a real life motorcycle. No, I'm going to stick with normie collector's editions. I'm going to look at stuff that your average Joe or someone a little bit above, or to be honest, someone as eccentric as me might actually buy. So we're going to stretch it to maybe $300, $350, €350, in around that kind of mark. It's kind of still realistic. And of course, because there is two important questions I want to ask of you guys in this video, I will naturally offer myself as the example before I ask that of everyone else. It's only fair. And I feel like I'm the pretty much perfect example to use this one as a case study for, because I have way too many collector's editions. In fact, there was even a point in my life where whenever I was buying a game, this was about 5 or 6 years, mind you, whenever I was going to buy a game, no matter what it was, as long as I was going to buy it, even if it was just a passing interest or if it was super invested in it, I always wanted the top tier collector's edition, no matter what it was. If it was a game I was just going to buy and kind of play out of boredom or just to check out, I still wanted that €250 collector's edition. And even if it was something that had released every time and changed my life every time it did, I wanted that big baller, shock collar, €666 collector's edition that came with a giant real life pair of big brass balls. I wanted it and I had to have it. That's come back and burned me a few times, which comes into play later in this video. But anyway, on to our first question. What does it take for you to consider buying or buy a collector's edition? What influences your decision to actually make that purchase? In my opinion, there's three important points that need to be taken into consideration, and they are as follows. The first point: what you physically get, or digitally, I guess that could count too, with the collector's edition. Some people, this is subjective for, because some people like statues, some people might like t-shirts, some people like physical maps, some people like DLC and skins, some people love art books and music CDs. So it will vary completely, but you have to look at what is in the collector's edition. If it's something that appeals to you, if it's something that super appeals to you, just barely appeals to you, whatever it is, you have to look at what's included. And that ties directly into the next part, the second point, which is the value you place on the collector's edition, as well as what the asking price is. So when you look at the game itself, as well as what's included with it and what that means to you and how interested in it you are, you have to put a value number on that. You might be okay spending maybe €120 or €150 on a collector's edition that comes with X, Y, and Z, but they might be asking €200 for it, and then that might be a bit too much for you. And the third point as well, which is your overall investment into the game and or series. Naturally, if it's just something you're kind of interested in and just have a little bit of a passing interest in, you're probably not as much inclined to buy a super expensive big dog, big nuts collector's edition. But you might buy a little base edition that might have maybe an art book or something. But of course, if it's something you're completely immersed in and that you live and breathe that franchise, it might affect your judgment a bit and you might be a bit looser on the purse strings and a bit more lenient. So in my opinion, if you factor those three things in when buying a collector's edition or considering buy it, where does that leave you? Are you a bit more on the stingy and frugal side? Will you only buy certain collector's editions for certain games and series? Or will you only buy them if they contain certain stuff? Are you a statue guy? Are you an art book girl? What's the deal? And feel free to give me an example of a collector's edition, a specific one, and its specific contents that you really wanted or didn't want or whatever in the comment section. And naturally, of course, I'll use myself as the example. The period, like I mentioned, where I bought collector's editions of absolutely everything I was interested in buying. If there were multiple collector's editions, I always wanted the top one. Of course, that's actually changed over the last few years. I've got a bit, let's say, less stupid with my money. And now I typically weigh and balance what's in there. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. MGS5. That game looked really good before launch. So even though naturally I wanted to play it on the glorious PC Gaming Master Race because it's a better experience in every way, shape and form, there was no physical edition for that game on PC. So I bought a digital edition on Steam, and then I went down and bought a physical collector's edition on PS4. That one burned the shit out of me. To an extent. It wasn't one of the worst, but you'll see my point. I was a bit overly zealous in that regard. But that brings us to our second point, the second big question I want to ask in this video. Have there ever been any collector's editions that you've bought and regretted or been burned by? Now I know I mentioned the MGS one a second ago, but I'll give different, proper, true, burned and pissed off examples. Now what do I mean by that anyway? But first off, I'm talking ones where you may have bought a collector's edition, got home and had been disappointed by it. Or you knew what was in it, but then when you got your hands on it and got to look at it and do whatever you needed to do with it, that you were thinking, okay, this wasn't worth the money I paid for it. Off the top of my head, without going through my entire collection of probably dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of collector's editions, I've probably had about 5 of them that just quickly come to mind. One of which I guess you could say was that MGS5 collector's edition. Another one was a Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward collector's edition. Between all the shit I had gone through to actually try and get that, that was a fun few days chronicled on the channel a long time ago. The way they had shown it off, the way they had depicted everything, and the way they had marketed it, they made the dragon statue look like it was going to be extremely high quality, extremely big, and made of a good quality material with lots of detail. It's actually really fucking small, despite the box being huge, and it's really cheap. The statue of the dragon is really cheap. So I was not happy with that. That was a lot of regret. Of course, because I'm a bit of a Final Fantasy fanboy, naturally I had to repeat the same mistake and bought the Stormblood Collector's Edition. And of course, I'm buying the Shadowbringers Collector's Edition. Those are big, expensive editions, and they're generally not worth it. But I'm a bit of an idiot sometimes. And keeping with the same theme of kind of deceptive marketing, if you will, we have Gears of War Judgment Kilo Squad Edition. Now, I had originally skipped Gears of War Judgment because I didn't think it looked any good, despite actually loving Gears of War 1, 2, and 3, and now I think Gears of War 4 is a pretty decent game. But Gears of War Judgment I had no interest in whatsoever. To the point where I completely skipped the game, until much later. One day I was in GameStop and I was just kind of bored. I had needed something to play, so I saw the Kilo Squad Edition there, and I said, you know what, I'll buy it. It was still full price at that point, despite being probably a year or two after launch. So I just said I might as well, why not, it gives me something to do. So anyway, we got the collector's edition down and he handed it to me. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't feel right. You sure this isn't a display box? No, they all feel that way. You can see it's still fully sealed. I'm like, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Now for those of you out there who don't know, the Gears of War Kilo Squad edition, the box for it is actually pretty big. It's maybe about 16 inches high, maybe about 8 inches wide, and about 8 inches deep. So it's a pretty damn big box. So when he handed this to me, and it felt basically empty, I was very suspicious and very skeptical, especially the whole way home. So anyway, when I got home, I opened up the Kilo Squad Collector's Edition, and there was pretty much instant regret and dismay, because inside that huge box that was as light as a feather, you had a giant cardboard divider. This cardboard divider was in place so that the box wouldn't collapse under the fact that there was nothing in it. The only two things in that box, except for the divider, you had the game case, which was stuck to one side of the divider, and on the other, you had a tiny little Baird figure. This is the kind of thing that would probably retail in a comic book store for maybe about €10. It's very, very small and very, very cheap. Now, with the huge box and the fact that they had advertised a Damon Baird figure, you would have assumed it was roughly the size of the box, give or take. But no, this was a tiny little 6-inch figure stuck to a cardboard divider in the middle of a giant box. Instant regret, instant dismay. But moving on to the next one. Also, these are in no particular order, by the way. You can rank them yourself if you want based on value or my disappointment with them, but they're just in a random order. Because the next one is actually a very high quality game. I was just very disappointed with the collector's edition. And that game, of course, being Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, I bought the GTA 5 collector's edition. The box was roughly the same size as the Kilo Squad edition, maybe a little bit smaller. And I knew what was in it. But having said all that, when I paid my money for it, I believe it was about 120, maybe 130 or 150 euro, without actually going and checking my receipt, because I still have the receipts for pretty much every game I bought within the last 20 years. Yeah, big whoop, want to fight about it? It was somewhere in that region. We can just call it 120 to 150 euro for the collector's edition of GTA 5. Now, the main attraction for it was it came with a couple of art cards, a couple of art prints, it came with some DLC, and it came with a physical, snapback Los Santos baseball cap. Now, I wear baseball caps, but I knew it was a snapback, and I only wear fitted caps, so it was more of a collector's piece, rather than something to actually wear. But when I got home and I started digging through it and all, I was actually just very disappointed with the collector's edition. You can pretty much blame it on myself, but it was a little bit of the hype for GTA 5, just kind of loosening my inhibitions, if you will. And finally, the last one on this little list that comes to mind. This one will probably surprise none of you out there, except maybe the fact that I actually went and bought it. But when I tell you what it is, you will kind of be surprised. Oh, absolutely no surprise that it's on this list. But anyway, that game is Destiny. And it's not just Destiny, it's the Destiny Ghost Edition. That's right, Destiny Ghost Edition. So incredibly disappointed. Mainly because, well, first off, everything that was in the Ghost Edition was massively, massively overpriced. A lot of people were just jumping on the hype. I wasn't even hyped for the game. I knew it was going to be bad because I'd played the beta and it was one of the worst games I'd ever played. But I just told myself, you know what, it's probably better with friends, which it really wasn't. And it was still in the period of whenever I was going to buy a game, I wanted the Big Dog, Big Nuts Collector's Edition. Of course, I've been burned by that one now, so that one pretty much killed me. And that motherfucker was like 250 euro or so. But anyway, that's it. That's our little collector's edition study, if you will. So let me know in the comment section below the answers to any of those questions I've asked in this video. What does it take for you to buy a collector's edition? Do you value one or two specific items that come with collector's editions, either physical or digital? How heavily do something like that weigh into your consideration of a purchase? And feel free to give an example if you want. Or do you just always buy collector's editions, never buy collector's editions, or what's the deal? As well as if you've been burned by any of the collector's editions you've ever bought. You can tell I still got a little bit of salt when it comes to those collector's editions I just listed that burned me. But you might be in a completely different situation, or you might even be in the same one. Anyway, let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a video upload or a live stream or whatever is a whole other story, but hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.